But let's start you off right here. The landscape of Division I athletics is changing once again. Last summer, we saw the SWAC add Bethune-Cookman and Florida A&M. Last month, several Southland Conference teams bolted to the WAC, and now that conference will have football once again. And now the ASUN is following suit. Here's Charity Chambers with more.
Jacksonville State, along with Eastern Kentucky and Central Arkansas, will become members of the ASUN beginning July 1st. The Gamecocks will be returning to the league. That was its first conference home when they joined Division I back in 1995.
We've been talking about the possibility of this happening for the last 5 or 6 years. So for Jacksonville State, the biggest for us, we wanted to find a conference from a geographic standpoint that really fit us for the best.
The ASUN also announced its plans to add FCS football for the first time in the conference's 43-year history. It will make the ASUN the 15th NCAA Division I conference to sponsor FCS football.
I think it's great for our school and our fans and everybody. So I think moving conferences is the right move for us in every sport. I mean, I think it's going to be an advantage, coming out. It's a lot of familiarity. We've been in OVC for so long, but sometimes, change is really, really good. And I think this is a right move.
With JSU moving to the ASUN, they will now be in the same conference as UNA. It's a state rivalry that dates back to 1949.
That's been some of our biggest crowds is UNA crowds when we played them at home. So just to rekindle that old Gulf South rivalry and have that in your conference, and you're going to play it every year, I think is great.
As of now, the ASUN will only have 5 football teams in the conference. On February 23rd, the league is expected to announce more on the fall football schedule.
So obviously big changes coming for Jacksonville State and the ASUN. Mo, what are your thoughts on all of this overall?
Well, considering that we've seen a whole lot of change in the last month and a half, I'm actually not surprised overall. And the reason why I say that is because of this. College football is basically creating a situation where the landscape is changing, not only on the big level with the Power 5 school and Group of Fives, but also on the next level. And here's another thing, too. The pandemic is causing a lot of people, especially administrators, to look at their finances. And they want to see where in the world are they going to have financial gains and where they're having financial losses. And because of that, not having some teams play a lot of games this past season and kind of putting together a schedule, I think really kind of, parlayed into that. As for Jacksonville State, we asked their athletic director and also the president what were some of the main factors. And they actually said, hey, we were never really looking to move, but at the end of the day, they looked at it and said the ASUN was the best spot for them. And then when you look at a map overall of the ASUN or the new ASUN that they're about to have, they are smack dab in the middle of the conference. When they were with the OVC, where they currently are, they're basically like literally one of the furthest south teams. They even alluded to like the closest conference member to them is like 3.5 hours away. So, and I'm not mistaken, I think that's like Tennessee State. So, you talk about the opportunity for a team like Jacksonville State to get in a conference where they've already been familiar with the footprint. And then I think the other winner in this is the University of North Alabama. The UNA Lions get a travel partner, as everybody always likes to look at when it comes to having partnerships within the conference. UNA and Jacksonville State's rivalry, not just in football, but in all sports, goes back decades and decades, almost a half century if I'm not mistaken. So I think that's going to be great because think about it, recruiting tools in all sports, that's something else that you're definitely going to look at. And I love how Josh Underwood, the SID, brought up this perfect stat. 70% of all Jacksonville State athletes are from the footprint of the ASUN conference. How amazing is that, knowing that when you go into the homes of these recruits that you're trying to bring over to your school, you know that there is a 70% chance that when they play, certain schools, 9 out of 10, it's going to be easy access for them. And of course, travel is going to be another thing, additional finances. And if they get a chance to actually add to the football footprint or whatever, right now they're dealing with 5 teams, they're waiting on another team or 2. I think they're definitely going to have it added for the fall season. And another thing you want to think about, that allows them to have an AQ for the FCS come the fall. February 23rd, we got to circle that on our calendar because that's going to be the next big thing we're going to see come from that conference with their commissioner.
Now, something you actually mentioned just then, Mo, is how important it is to have this UNA and this JSU rivalry. And we have seen that over the years, but I think that's really important moving forward because, like you said, it's a big money factor to add JSU to the ASUN right now. And just alone in that rivalry, I think it's going to cause this huge divide in North Alabama. I think that's kind of what we need, a good divide, not a bad divide, but a good divide to bring some kind of like healthy rivalry to the competition spirit of the ASUN conference. So I think that's really important to note. And it's going to be really fun to look forward to those games moving forward because they've already had so much hype behind them. I think it's just going to gain even more. So it's going to be fun to see this whole thing pan out in the future, and I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think one thing that they really kind of mentioned in their press conference, Jacksonville State, the AD, and Coach Cross and everything, they were just talking about the mindset of the teams that are in the ASUN and teams that are going to be in the ASUN. They like how they are. They're always trying to do their best and everything like that. And so to be able to compete against other teams that have that same mindset is another reason why they are really kind of making that decision to move to the ASUN. So I am really excited to see what it brings. And of course, like both of y'all said, to see the JSU UNA, like, of course, there's always been a rivalry, but to see it even more so now, it's going to be really, really exciting.
Absolutely. And here's another thing. I know football will be the driving force for the new football part of the conference for the ASUN. One other thing that really was talked about a lot, especially by the commissioner, he was like, look, Kennesaw State on a year-to-year basis, they're usually a top 15 team. He's now adding Jacksonville State, another team that's usually in the top 15, and they're also adding Central Arkansas. So easily among football programs, they're going to have 3 top 15 teams 9 times out of 10, which means that you could probably get the winner. If it happens to be one of those 3, you could probably get the winner of the conference and then an at-large bid as well. So you talk about football being a driving force of something new, but then at the same time, the ASUN has great basketball teams, great baseball teams, and great softball teams as well. So I think, this is going to be very, very good. And, big kudos to Commissioner Tad for making all these things happen. And remember, we're going to circle that calendar February 23rd because we want to find out who else is being added to the conference.